How's it going? My kitty. This is Lana. So today, I guess I wanted to talk about healing and kind of navigating, not necessarily maybe the original trauma that you experienced, but the compounded trauma that has come since then. And ultimately, like, sitting with how past lives can influence our present, and maybe talk about past lives a little bit as well. How do I guess I could just start by being open and vulnerable. So when I was a child, and I've said this in other videos and things, but when I was a child, I was sexually molested by several people. So my grandfather, he was actually technically my step grandfather. He was married into the family. I also had an uncle who, she's got a mind of her own. So my grandfather, my mom, one of my mom's boyfriends, an uncle, a friend of my mom's, and then when I was older, my 20th birthday, I was raped. And in the midst of this sexual trauma, right, I was also experiencing a lot of other things because my mom had, and it's the first time I've really talked about it in this light, but which I didn't realize was affecting me until I was a part of this conscious conversation last night. Because I've been asking, how am I holding myself back? Like, what is it that is keeping me from my dreams? And I got the answer, you are. And I was like, well, I get that, but like, what blockage is still there? And I've been having a lot of thoughts and fears around being abandoned. And Brendan, if you're watching this, thank you. But in this conscious conversation, this person he was sharing something that he wrote, and he was adopted. And he was talking about how he abandons himself because of being abandoned. Fuck. Sorry. Not sorry, but I'm sorry. And it made me realize that okay, let me get myself back here. Raw emotion for you guys. Wasn't expecting this to come up, but here we are. So during all of this, the main, I don't even want to say main, but I was molested when I was between the age of 2 and 4, and then, and even younger, I have memories of being touched and stuff as an infant ish. I can't remember how old I was. I just kind of remember it happening. And then when my grandfather was molesting me, I realized, and what Brendan had said last night in the conscious conversation was, my mom had abandoned me. And I've been having a lot of thoughts and like weird emotions coming up around being abandoned. I have a fear of being left. And so I realized I'd been preparing myself for everybody leaving me. And when Brendan talked about being abandoned, I felt it inside. It hadn't quite got to, I felt it subconsciously. It hadn't gotten to my conscious awareness yet. And I woke up this morning and I just knew that I had to sit down and make a video and get this off my chest and just talk about it and talk about how trauma is compounded a lot of times, especially if you've experienced stuff as a child. You don't recognize that you are being programmed or programming yourself to be a certain way based off of your experiences around you, because we're not taught that. We're not taught that you create your own reality. In indigenous culture, you're taught those things. And in Native American culture, those things are taught to the children. They are aware that you are creating your reality, that only you have the ability to manipulate and change anything that you're experiencing. And some things you experience because you're meant to experience them, but after a certain point, like you have to recognize a pattern. And it was last night, like I said, I don't know if I've said this, but I've been asking the questions of like, what is holding me back? What thoughts or beliefs do I need to release? And when I heal, this is just a bit of information, as I do shadow work as a consistent type of thing. It's a way to keep myself in check, so I don't fall off the rail, if you will. And that just kind of comes from feeling out of control, which is also something that I'm working through. But I had the thought last night, I was like, trauma is so compounded. Like, if you think about it, in this lifetime, you experience whatever you have experienced up to this point. But then, when you look at the trauma that you've experienced, it's layered, right? It's like peeling an onion. And I know a lot of people are aware of that maybe, or maybe you're not. Now you are, so there it is. But healing is like an onion, and it doesn't matter where you're at or who you are or at what point in your spiritual journey that you're at. It is like an onion. And the only way to grow is to experience pain and suffering. So it's balance. Like, it's ultimately balance. And it's only pain and suffering for as long as you need it to be that. And in recognizing that I abandon myself very often, and admitting that to myself, which is essentially what happens when disassociation happens from this reality. I'm not sure if anybody is aware of that watching this video, but like aware of what disassociation is. So and this is something else that came up in my conscious awareness yesterday, was oftentimes we use our past as an armor, or our past lives as an armor. And one of my armors is disassociation, is placing myself outside, placing myself outside of myself, which there's nothing wrong with that, with having the ability to perceive the world around you from another perspective. But when you're doing it so you're not feeling emotion, that's where the issue lies, right? And it's a form of abandonment. It's a form of abandoning yourself, because as a child, that's all I knew how to do, was to remove my consciousness, place it somewhere else while the bad shit was happening. And then I had the realization that I had been hurting myself afterwards. in many different ways, and then I'm also adopted, so my family didn't want to take care of me anymore because they were afraid I was going to commit suicide again. Tried to commit suicide again. I had attempted several times, and my mom lost custody of us, and my family didn't want to take me in because they were afraid that they were going to have to hold the responsibility of my death, which has its own limiting belief within itself. But I didn't realize until last night how fucked up that made me feel. And my granny has been trying to get me to see something the last couple weeks with all the hummingbirds around. I mean, they've been making themselves known in all kinds of wild ways. Like, we'll be sitting here having a conversation, and then a hummingbird will just hover above us. And I'm like, there's something. The spiritual realm is trying to get me to see something. And that abandonment, like, I realized that I distance myself from people and things and myself so that if and when they go, it's less painful. But in reality, all it does is create more space and more distance from what you are feeling. And what good does it do to push how you're feeling away? All it's going to do is snap back tenfold. And I know that from experience, which is why I've been asking the questions that I've been asking, because I've felt myself attacking my reality, and not necessarily attacking like in a reactionary like stance. Like, sometimes it's a subliminal, subconscious thing that you're not even aware that you're doing until you come into yourself and you start asking those conscious questions of what is holding me back, what do I need to focus on, right? And last night really brought up a lot of different things for me personally that I kind of knew but I wasn't aware of until it was put in front of me. Everything is a reflection of you, of some aspect of you somewhere, somehow. And that's honoring the divinity within me and within someone else. Knowing that whoever's in front of me is a reflection some way, somehow. And that's what we're here on earth to do, is to have that reflection, to integrate certain aspects of ourselves, to be all that we can be and are already, but to become cognitively aware of all that we are. And that's a journey and a process, and that's beautiful, and that's kind of what life is about, is really embarking on this transformational journey. It gives life purpose. I've been healing these traumas for about 5 years. Childhood shit fucks you up. And I see it happening now in different ways with how society is and how we are reacting, not we, but the collective, how the reactions are and the false information out there, and how the unconsciousness that is within our collective, like, what the fuck? It's beautiful and chaotic, and it gives you the ability to transform yourself, but I just kind of I just see a lot of pain and suffering right now. And us, the light workers, those who are embarking on integrating these aspects of ourselves, are going to be the ones that have to turn around and help all of these people exit the matrix. And the matrix is probably always going to exist. It's going to exist in some way, some shape, some form, and it may not be what we see right now in the future, because it definitely isn't what it was in the past. But everything from the past has created what we're experiencing now. So as we shift our perspective and we create that new earth, it will start to take form. But that will take time. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's a beautiful journey, like just recognizing all of the stuff that, and recognizing all of the stuff that is inside of you, and knowing that everything externally is something internally. And sometimes I study the mirror too hard, which is something you can do, right? Where you're just, there is a heart. I don't even know if you can see that. Can you see that? Look at that. In my tea, a little heart. But yeah, I guess, sorry, I realized that emotions kind of came up, and everything I shared, I started to judge myself. Yeah. Trauma is compounded often. And what if you experience a new trauma, as you experience new traumas or experience new pain and suffering, at what point are you going to stop and turn around and look at what has led you to this point? Because every choice that you've made has led you to exactly where you are and experiencing exactly what you're experiencing. That beeping is annoying. I'm just going to put that out there because it's kind of drawing me and irritating me a little bit. But it is, it is an onion, and you're never done. So if you ever think you're done, you're not really done. You're just maybe done for the moment. Yeah. I guess I just wanted to share that with you guys. Yeah. Just wanted to share that. Raw emotion, abandonment, and, recognizing that we repeat what we know until we know something different. And that's hard, but it's the truth. And only you can know something different. And when you're ready, you will know something different. And removing the judgment and removing the idea of needing to be when you already are, and allowing yourself to show what needs to come up. I'll just share my experience. The hummingbird. I'll share my experience. So in connecting with my inner child, I emotionally ate for about a week or two. And I knew I was doing it. I was doing it without judgment. That hummingbird was so amazing. I was doing it without judgment. And sometimes you'll do things, you'll repeat the pattern until you're ready to recognize what it is. And I realized that oh my God, there's another one. I realized, that bird scared it off. I realized that I had, I was disassociating from reality. And then I recognized that I was emotionally eating. And I was like, I know I'm emotionally eating. I'm in sync with the new moon, so menstruating and that type of thing, which I know for a lot of people is probably weird to hear from me because masculine presenting, but I do menstruate. I do have a menstrual cycle. It happens every 2 weeks, or every month, not every 2 weeks. That would be some shit. but I start to PMS every 2 weeks, and that's kind of the cycle. And I my inner child, while my being is androgynous and my being is gender fluid in nature, I recognize that my inner child has a very strong feminine aspect, and I've been connecting to that deeper and deeper and deeper, and noticing that I was emotionally eating, and knowing that it could be associated with menstruating, right, or PMSing, but also knowing that there was a deeper underlying aspect there. I kept asking, what is, what I release everything that no longer serves me, and I did several different exercises, journal, art, meditation. I did all of the things that helped me to kind of like navigate all of those emotional states of being, to come to this video earlier and express the abandonment, and to express how that made me feel, and to recognize that was something that was in there. Like I've forgiven everybody. I did that early in my healing. I came to the recognition and the understanding and the understanding that, like, each individual only did what they thought was best for me at that time. And what was best for me, or best for them, or best for the situation. They did what they knew was what they felt and thought was right. And so even the trauma, and it's not saying that like sexual abuse, they felt that was right, but they had their own shit, and I can't negate that. It happened. Those vibrations came together and it happened. And I've forgiven them and I've let that go. Like I said, though, it is compounded. There's many layers to these things. And while the predominant trauma, which would usually be like that sexual abuse, right? While it often takes forefront, we forget about all of the things that led up to that even happening. The fact that I wasn't the only child in the house, that plays a factor. The fact that, like I said earlier, my mom abandoned me there, and she did that several times. The fact that, like I said earlier too, where I've struggled with suicide, my family abandoning me then, it has made me the human that I am today. It has made me the strong, resilient person that I am. The depth of love that I have to give to people is huge. I love everybody. I've found that even though you show up and you have love, other people don't always know how to receive that love. And when you heal, that's what you're doing, though. You're allowing yourself to see that you have the love to give. It's not your responsibility for other people to accept it. So I don't think I have any. I feel like it's starting to dry up a little bit, this stuff that I need to say or have to say. It's been a beautiful, beautiful time. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of this and connecting. So yeah. Infinite love, infinite light, and infinite movement, my friend.